Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're totally demystifying the humble check, taking those dry, dusty banking definitions and turning them into a pretty wild journey of security protocols and, believe it or not, time manipulation. It's actually a brilliant system, hiding right there in plain sight on a tiny slip of paper.
Here's our roadmap. First, the basics of a check. Next, we'll climb the security ladder. Then, explore maximum security crossing. After that, time-traveling checks. And finally, a summary and a look at the future. Let's get right into it.
Starting off with Section 1, Basics of a Check.
At its very core, a check is basically a command. It's a formal, written document issued by you, the account holder, instructing your bank to take a very specific amount of money from your account and hand it over to someone else, or maybe an organization. Think of it as physical permission to move your wealth around.
And every single check relies on a core triad to make this happen. First up, you have the drawer. That's the person writing and signing it. Then there's the drawee, which is the bank actually making the payment. And finally, the payee, the person or organization ultimately receiving the money.
But what if you just want to pay yourself? Well, if the drawer and payee are the exact same person, you've got a self-check. You literally just write the word self where the payee's name goes, you sign it, hand it over to the bank, and it's an incredibly easy way to withdraw cash right from the counter without ever needing an ATM.
Moving right along to Section 2, the Security Ladder.
Let's start at the bottom rung with the bearer check. This one is payable to whoever physically holds it at the bank. If you look at a standard check, you'll actually see the word bearer printed there. If you don't cross that word out, anyone holding that piece of paper can cash it. So if Rahul writes a 5,000 rupee bearer check and Amit carries it into the bank, Amit gets the cash, even if he isn't Rahul. It's super quick and easy to transfer, but man, it carries a massive risk of theft. If you lose it, it's literally like dropping a wad of cash on the sidewalk.
So to fix that crazy high risk, you step up the ladder and issue an order check. By striking out the word bearer or writing something like pay to Rohan or order, you completely change the rules. Now it requires a formal endorsement. Only the specifically named person, like Rohan, or a representative that Rohan formally authorizes, can actually get the money.
The really crucial point here is comparing these two foundational types side by side. The bearer check gives you incredible speed and easy transferability without any endorsements, but you're highly vulnerable to fraud. The order check, on the other hand, bumps your security up to a medium level. It needs an endorsement to transfer, and the bank might actually verify your identity. Sure, that adds a slightly longer verification process, but it definitely gives you some much-needed peace of mind.
Which brings us to Section 3, Maximum Security Crossing.
By doing something as simple as drawing two parallel lines on the top left corner, you create what's called a crossed check. And this tiny modification is incredibly powerful. It completely blocks anyone from getting immediate cash over the counter. Instead, the money has to be deposited directly into a bank account. This dramatically cuts down on theft because now the bank has a solid, traceable electronic record of exactly whose account those funds went into.
Now, within this crossing concept, we've got two variations, general and special. A general crossing is just those two parallel lines, which means the funds can be deposited into any bank account. A special crossing, though, is way more restrictive. For this, the name of a specific bank is actually written right between those lines. So if you write State Bank in there, only that specific bank can collect the payment on behalf of the payee.
And for the absolute highest level of everyday security, you just write the magical words AC Payee Only right between those crossing lines. This creates an account payee check. Doing this ensures the money is credited exclusively to the named payee's account. It normally can't be transferred to a third party at all. You're basically building an ultimate fortress against fraud and unauthorized encashment. The trade-off, of course, is flexibility. Since only the named person's account can receive the funds, you lose that fluid transferability of a bearer or order check. But honestly, what you gain in maximum security is absolutely worth it.
All right, moving on to Section 4, Time-Traveling Checks.
Think of a check as a time-stamped contract. When we lay it out on a timeline, it's kind of fascinating. We can see how they exist in the past as antedated, in the present as currently valid, looking ahead to the future as post-dated, and finally how they essentially die off as expired stale checks. Let's break these down real quick.
First up is the antedated check. This is just a check that has a date from the past written on it. For instance, if today is July 20th, but you date the check July 10th, that's antedated. It's still perfectly valid and can be presented to the bank, as long as it hasn't exceeded its overall validity window.
Businesses use this all the time when a payment legally needs to be treated as if it were made on an earlier date for accounting purposes.
On the flip side, a post-dated check acts like a firm promise for the future. You're writing a future date on the slip. If you date a check for August 15th, the bank physically cannot and will not touch that money if someone tries to cash it on August 10th. It is totally locked until that specific date arrives. This makes post-dated checks an absolutely perfect tool for scheduling future business transactions or securing monthly loan repayments without actually moving the cash today.
But, time is a finite resource. If you wait too long after that written date to present the check to the bank, it transforms into a stale check. Banks will only accept checks for a limited, predefined period starting from the date written on the top right corner. Once that window expires, the bank will flat out refuse to honor it. At that point, the piece of paper is totally useless, and the drawer is going to have to issue a brand new one.
Let's wrap things up with Section 5, Summary and the Future. Before we get to the final summary, we definitely have to give a quick shout out to a historical heavy hitter, the traveler's check. This was a prepaid instrument specifically designed for globetrotters. It was honestly brilliant for its time because it was accepted almost everywhere and, crucially, could be replaced if it was lost or stolen, depending on the issuer's terms. As our source material points out, though, these are pretty rare today. Why? Well, debit cards, credit cards, and digital payments have basically taken over that entire space for modern travelers.
All right, here is our master matrix, basically your ultimate cheat sheet for everything we've talked about. Notice how the level of security directly correlates with restrictions. The bearish check gives you the ultimate freedom to cash and transfer, but it sits at the absolute lowest security level. As you move down to crossed and account payee checks, you lose the ability to grab immediate cash and transfer it freely, but your security spikes to very high. You can also see exactly how the time-traveling post and antedated checks fit right into the puzzle alongside the self and traveler's checks. It really is a perfectly balanced ecosystem of risk versus convenience. So the crucial point I want to leave you with today is a question about the future. We've seen how specific, highly secure instruments like traveler's checks have actively faded away, totally disrupted by the rise of modern debit cards and digital wallets. As our financial world becomes increasingly paperless and instant, is the entire physical paper check destined to hit its expiration date and become permanently stale? It's definitely something to think about the next time you sign your name on that dotted line. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.